everyone, and welcome back to hashtag Every Role Matters Roundtable. We are back with Dr. Alfie and Michael Sinclair. And for those of you who have not seen part one, well, first, make sure you go back and watch that. But I will have both of them introduce themselves again. So we'll start with Michael.
Hi, yes. My name is Michael Sinclair II. I go by Michael Crits everywhere. Twitch streamer from time to time, college student, former Navy corpsman, so I'm a veteran, and I'm missing, and a professional TTRPG player, role player / actor. And that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Dr. Alfie?
My name is Dr. Alfie Noble. I go by Dr. Alfie because I work a lot with young people, and people always want to be respectful, so you don't call grown folks by the first name. That's how I was raised when I was a little kid. Now I don't want little kids to get in trouble saying, Alfie, and their mom's like, no, you don't talk to her like that. So it's Dr. Alfie, and I think I said I'm a psychologist by training. I've been doing this work for a little over 20 years. Something like that, 22, 23, I forget. What's happening when you get old. And my passion is young people. I'm so completely passionate about young people and their mental health. And I believe deeply, one of the things I say is every single child, every single young person, including young adults, deserves an opportunity for optimal mental health. And so my work really manifests itself through my nonprofit, the AAKOMA Project, which is focused on young people of color. The names always change, but right now we're saying BIPOC, but I also want to recognize Asian American and other folks of color, where they're sort of not in that title. And LGBTQ young folks of color, and white LGBTQ young folks, anybody who's marginalized. That's who we serve through the nonprofit. And then I also have a podcast called Couched in Color, where we literally have a variety. We've had like some of everybody represented on the podcast. And we are both audio and video, so people can watch. And I love that they can see who I'm interviewing, because it's important to see that representation, because representation, as I've heard Michael say so eloquently, truly does matter. And I used to be an academic, and then I got tired of it. And now I'm like, free, I'm free, I'm happy, I'm free. Running my nonprofit and doing my thing. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Fenway.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So the theme is the same from part one. We are talking about the needs of people of color in the gaming and mental health industries. So let's hop right into the questions. So the first question I have is, Michael, I know that tokenization of people of color is an issue. How do we work to solve this? Coming from an event organizer, what is some advice that you would give me to help stop tokenization of people of color in our events?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to, and I spoke about this in the previous episode, but it seems to be the case now is Black folks or people of color or any marginalized group is a hot trend, and we're being treated more as a trend or as a opportunity to grow people's media, whatever that may be. And so we're not seeing something I've seen on Twitter from other creators speaking into this, Black creators, people of color creators, that we're getting work, but it's not work that's contiguous. It's not work that is like permanent in the sense of, a whole campaign or several campaigns or, or being part of some sort of group or community that's going on currently. We're kind of just being sought out for to kind of speak into, issues or play certain characters. And then after that, we kind of have to find work someplace else or, get an opportunity someplace else. So I think one of the bigger ones is like seek out, if you're going to, seek out Black folks or POC folks, really think of the reason why you're bringing them along or having them be part of your team, your group. And that's how you should be thinking about it. Like they're going to be a part of your squad or the group that's making content. And, you want to also have them there for the longer haul. I think kind of having these little short bits of work for us people in the media or in the TTRPG community, we're starting to notice that. And it's something that we kind of want to see a little bit change in that premise, that we'd like more permanent jobs. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of do it, because like tokenization, right? We're all saying, like, Black folks, people of color, marginalized folks, we want more opportunities, and there are more opportunities being presented themselves. There's a lot of opportunities out, but are those opportunities, there's a better word than permanent, but are those opportunities a little bit more concrete, or are they something that is kind of like a one shot, or something that's, kind of temporary, being, 2 months or less?
Absolutely. So kind of a follow-up question to that then is, for events such as the Jaspers Game Day streams, where we're doing one shots, and we don't have necessarily long-term opportunities, is there still tokenization? How do we avoid that then?
I think the premise of the context, how you folks operate at Jaspers Game Day, it's different than what's happening else in the TTRPG community. You folks usually hold these more one-shotty events to raise funds for communities, and so in that regard, I don't think Jasper Game Day operates the same as one of the bigger not bigger storytellers, but like ones that focus on long form campaigns. And so, I think throughout Jasper's Game Day, I think I've seen you folks reach out to not just Black folks, but people of all colors, and people of all like marginalizations and all that. So I think, and you can think about that as being contiguous, like you have continually done that, so on and so forth, not when it's popular, not when it's, Black History Month, not when it's a tragedy happens out in the world, so there's a spotlight on certain marginalized people. Consistently, you folks have been kind of making sure that you had every type of person to tell their story, and continuing to do that. I think that's the right trend. If they're, and I believe in Jasper's Game Day, you folks have like positions and more permanent positions, as far as like getting the charities going and getting the groups together, and like, I don't know what the staff looks like. I haven't done my research there, but if you have the team there, and you're trying to look for talent, like consider, opening your horizons if you folks haven't done that yet. But if you have, that's great, and continue to do that.
Well, I will say that our team is pretty small currently, but we do have Sharif Jackson on our board of advisors.
Oh yeah.
And we fill our boards with women and people of color and other marginalized communities, and that's one of our focuses with that, is as long as because another one is we want to make sure that they fill the position correctly. We don't want to just pull some random person off the street because they fill a role. So that's kind of, we want to make sure it's purposeful in our choosing.
Yeah.
So we do our best, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I think that shows. I do remember Sharif being, getting an opportunity on that team. So just kind of forgot there for a second, but yeah, I think y'all are doing the thing.
I appreciate it very much. Yeah, for sure. So Dr. Alfie, is tokenization something that happens in the mental health communities? Is that kind of your experience? What is something you'd like to see that to happen there?
Two ways I see it. So I do a fair amount of media contribution work. And so whether that's on camera, online, in print, there are 2 or 3 white ally reporters who, anytime they call, I'm going to respond to them, and they know who they are. Molly and Dami, they know. And because I feel like they call me when there are topics that are relevant specifically for BIPOC people. Actually, one came out today about Black mental health professionals in the age of COVID and racial injustice. How are Black mental health professionals taking care of themselves while they're taking care of other people? And it was a young white woman who wrote that, Molly. And so that's important that she took the time to think up a story like that, to go interview. It's probably like 5 of us in the article, all African-American or Black women identified, and really spotlighted what the issues are. But those women are rare, right? Or those humans are rare, those people are rare. I think more often than not, what happens is when there's an issue specific to a population. Right, so I have a friend who runs a nonprofit that's focused on Black LGBTQ folks. Every time something comes up about Black LGBTQ folks, they run to him. And I'm like, but he can talk about other LGBTQ folks, not just the Black ones. He can talk about that experience, period, from an advocacy perspective, from a lived experience perspective. That's where I see the tokenism. And so like when I'm watching the news, sometimes, you know, I'll see, you know, like when I'm watching major network news, whenever there's a conversation about mental illness in general is air quotes, I'm looking at Michael because I can like see the wheels turning. He probably would say the same thing, that they go get white people. But when it's specific to a population of people of color, they go get the person who they envision most reflects that group. And I think what people have to recognize is that if I'm a mental health professional, I know mental health, period, right? As kids say, period, poo. I know it, period, right? It's not specific to any, I know for everybody. Whereas the same is not necessarily true for people who are not marginalized. If you come from a place of privilege, you don't necessarily know what the experiences are because you don't have to. You can be oblivious if you want to. So I think it's, I wish people would understand it's much better to go get somebody who's marginalized because they can speak to their marginalization and they can speak to majority culture because you got to know how to navigate both to function, right? You can't do it without knowing, right? And so there's this, I think it's Frantz Fanon who says, right, the oppressed always know the oppressor better than the other way around. Always, you have to survive. So I think that's the way that tokenism shows up. There's also this woman I follow who's a big wig, an African-American woman in public health. Her name is, I think I'm saying it in the right order. Her name is Dr. Jones, but I think it's either Phyllis Kamara or Kamara Phyllis Jones. And one thing I learned from watching her, and she's on Twitter and I don't know if she's on Instagram, she's definitely on Twitter, like a Twitter activist. And she says, whenever you're at a table, and this is what I try to remember for myself, I want you to look around the table and I want you to think to yourself, who is not at this table? And I always try to remember that, like no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm a guest at the table and it's somebody else's event, or whether it's my table and I'm sort of running the show. And then what I always add to that is, so she says, who's not at this table? And I say, and what actions can I take to go find them and bring them to the table? And I think that's how you get rid of tokenism. Like you're constantly asking yourself, who's not here? So I'm always thinking, I was in a long meeting today, and all I kept thinking about until I heard a sister with a accent, she was Latina. Until I heard her speak, I'm thinking, okay, where the Latino folks at? Ain't no Latinos in this meeting. And then I was like, okay, there's one, right? And there was like 3 Black people. So I was like, okay, she's one, there's 3 of us. Like, I guess we're it today. And I really loved the group that I was working with, but that's what I'm thinking, right? And there happened to be some South Asian Indian folks. I said, okay, Asian Americans are represented. Native American folks, I'm not sure they were represented. So I'm always thinking like that. And I knew there were some folks who were out LGBTQ. So I knew that group was represented. But I think I heard Michael say in our first episode, it's constant work. It requires that you suit up every day and you show up in this way. And sometimes people are not going to like you when you always show up in that way. And that's okay, because you're trying to somebody create a space for me, like my shirt. She's there.
Hell yeah.
Right? We went to the same undergrad college. We belong to the same sorority. Like, she's there because people made sacrifice, including in her family and outside her family. So I just feel like this idea that she recognizes, that Vice President Harris, she's not just doing it for her. It's for all these people who are coming behind her. And that's what I feel like in my field, we have to do a much better job of. We're fighting for ourselves, because I want good things too. But I'm also fighting for my kids and the other people who are coming behind me so that they have a little bit easier time. So yeah, we deal with tokenism, and I think there are ways to fight it, but it really requires a group effort.
Absolutely. If I'm allowed to say this, I think tokenism might take a group effort in all scenarios. I mean, obviously I'm not well versed in that kind of experiences, but just from hearing both of you talk, I think it might be a group effort in all experiences.
Yes, you can say that, and yes, you're 100% right.
Yep, that's spot on.
That's right. That's right.
Fantastic. So my next question is for you, Michael. So what do you want to see more when it comes to creators, including POCs, in their storylines, animations, content, D&D adventures, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think I kind of spoke into it before, like these fantasy worlds or even stuff that are based on nonfiction. There are people of color, Black folks, BIM, POC, any marginalized folks that are out there, that there's stories to be told about that, and great stories. D&D adventures. I think D&D adventures. There's a lot of there's a lot that you could speak into when it comes to if it's WotC stuff, and how they've kind of handled some of the marginalized groups and their content. And I think, and there's been recent knowledge that came from someone who came from there, and so I think if they're going to be about the work, they really have to be about the work. It also, like, to me, it always just comes down to, are you willing to do the work today? Dr. Alfie spoke into it as well. Like, who's not at the table? What story isn't being told? What perspective do we not have to tell certain stories or even think of a story? There's so much things that we can bring to the table. Speaking into something that kind of just happened recently, like, Christina Ariel is now a host in a Star Wars show. And so it's awesome to see Christina out there doing that. And I said this in a tweet, kind of not, I didn't like at her, and it wasn't like a subtweet, but it's just a general feeling I was having that day, that, a lot of the things that people enjoy nowadays, a lot of content people now enjoy nowadays, either, if you look back far enough, black folks made the thing, or at some point approved upon, and is what you see now. I'm not saying all, but a damn near a lot. And so that being said, you see that content and you take it and you try and run with it, but then you don't have anyone that represents that or can speak more into it. You're just kind of taking whatever you thought was the content made from Black POC folks, and you're telling it from your perspective, which is always going to be, like, forgive this saying, but it's going to be washed down, it's going to be watered down. I think there's a certain richness that we bring to the table, and I think because and I said this in a tweet, because we're so passionate about this stuff, because we love this stuff so much, you're never going to see us not be in these spaces. We're going to fight to be in these spaces because we are actually that passionate about it. We love it that much. And so, like, all the hate that's happening of not wanting to see Black folks or BIM POC folks, any marginalized groups, they can hate as much as they like, but we're still going to love the thing that's there because it spoke to us in some way and we're passionate about it. So, the things I want to see in the content is that you need to bring people to the table who are passionate about this stuff and to tell things from their perspective, because for one way or another, I spoke into this earlier, like, video games were my escape, right? There's certain genres, there's certain things that I enjoy because they're an escape for me. And so that's why I fell in love with them or enjoy them that much. And it doesn't always have to be the case that I'm escaping something. Sometimes it's just pure joy. And it doesn't matter what, color you are or gender or, what your capabilities are. You love that thing and you're passionate about it. And you can speak into that from whatever lived experience you have. So honestly, it really just takes giving us continuous work, and it also takes bringing us to the table to give our perspective on things, because you're definitely going to find someone who's passionate about that subject, whether it's the D&D adventures, storylines, animation. Right now I've been seeing an influx of I'm half Filipino. I've been seeing a lot more representation of, like, Asian and Pacific Islander animation, and it's beautiful. Like, there's this Disney short or something, or Pixar short, and it had to do with some Lola who had, like, a tin can, or they had, like, there's something in the background. It was like a little tin, like a cookie jar tin, it's like Christmas cookie tins, and it had, like, the needles and the thread and everything in there, and that, like, just, it sent me, like, I was transported. I was, like, spirited away in that moment. And seeing that was just mind blowing. And knowing that, you know, there's more of these creators coming to the table, because that's what it does to us. Like, we just connect with it so hard, and we want to be a part of it and passionate about it and bring other people to it. It's something that, you know, people spoke into, like white folks, they're like, they always see themselves in these stories, in these games, in these things, and they feel empowered, they feel passionate, they feel this. We'd have to do extra work to feel that, or we have to do mental gymnastics or use our active imagination to be part of these things that we love. But in this example I just gave about that little like Filipino short, I was transported. I can't even explain how I felt. Like, it felt like someone like came from behind me and just like slammed me into the experience, and I was like just living it. So I think knowing that what it does to people like myself, like, I think that should be a reason alone to bring more people to the table, to create more content that shows marginalized folks.
Absolutely. I agree. Dr. Alfie, do you think that there's anything that we kind of missed when we were talking or think needs to be added?
First, I'm gonna say salamat to Michael. I appreciate what he shared. And in my next life, you know, Filipinos are my people. I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So there's a huge Filipino population. And that was my life, right? And many are Catholic. And so I was at the Catholic church on the weekends with my Filipino friends for the dances and stuff, right? Lumpia, pancit, chicken adobo, all that was my childhood.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
That was my childhood. And actually I have a cousin whose wife, she's deceased, but she was Filipino. Mm-hmm. So I have some biracial, I guess they're like little cousins, because he's my first cousin and they're his kids. Mm-hmm. So I know exactly when Michael says you saw that thing, it's just that one little thing in the short, and it took him there. That's representation. Like, it's something very small that if I watched it, I probably wouldn't even know what the significance was. But, you know, I think I always say to people, if we can, I had a Latina psychologist taught me that. She was a mentor. And she said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I feel like if people could do more of that, like when you're listening to somebody, really listen with the intent to understand, not listen, think about what you're going to say back to them. I think if we could spend time, it sounds a little hokey, but I think if we could spend time doing that, I just feel like it would make it a lot easier to integrate stories into, like, in the gaming world and in the world that you all live in. It would be that much easier to integrate those experiences really easily. So again, the closest I can come to it is, because I'm not a gamer, is approximating like Marvel comics, right? Or like DC comics, looking at like, I like seeing Cyborg. Now my son, I want to get this right, I think that's DC comics, Cyborg and that kind of thing. Or like they have a new Batwoman and she's Black. Why can't Black woman be Black? You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that's a good thing. And so being able to see yourself reflected, not when it's only focused on your group. I shouldn't have to go watch something that's solely focused on Filipinos to see Filipino people. I should be able to go anywhere and see a Filipino person or a Black person or a Hmong person or a Native person. Like, they should just exist in all these spaces. But I think sometimes it's really hard for people to come outside of their experience and want to ask someone else, explain this to me. Michael, explain what the tin with the needle, explain that to me so that I know how to incorporate it into what I'm doing. And to me, the best example of that is Black Panther.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, it's just the idea that there could be, and they even integrated it into the story. Like, when you see the white people, like, yeah, right, in Africa, ha, 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 that's ridiculous, right? And they got all these technological advances, and, you know, Shuri was the smartest person, like, in the whole country, like, making all this stuff, and it's a girl. And so, but all the money that movie made, because there were so many of us who were so hungry for that. So I think when we take the time to listen and incorporate and weave all those stories in, that's what you end up with, or that's what you can end up with. And so we should have, you know, a Filipino Panther, and we should have, you know, a Native American Panther. Like, we should have those stories available to us. So I agree with everything Michael said. Like, he's brilliant. I knew I liked him. Now I know why. But, you know, it's just,
you're
like,
too kind.
Family, right? You say you have Filipinos, so you family now. So I think it's just, it's important for everybody. I think the ultimate message is we all want to feel seen, loved, and valued. And representation moves us closer to that like when I can see myself reflected, I know that I'm valued because I see myself and I'm not excluded.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for your insight on these topics. I really, really appreciate it for you willing to talk about all of this. So that is the end of part 2 of this episode. So I'll go around, we can do outros, make sure people know where to find you, who you are, if they haven't figured that out already, and what projects you are doing. We can start with Michael.
Oh yeah. So once again, Michael Sinclair II. I go by Michael Kritz on Twitter and on Twitch. I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use that thing. I should work on it because I do a lot of outdoorsy stuff, and I think Black folks need to be out in the outdoor spaces because it's just we connect with it so much, and it's been kind of taken away from us in some senses. So I should get on the Instagram. Anyway, I am I'm a Navy veteran, corpsman. I now a computer science major, and I'm a professional TTRPG player. And you can catch me most of the time on my streams. I'm doing study hall streams where it's just like, light jazzy or lo-fi music. And you can work alongside me and be productive, or you can distract me a bit by talking about, because I have ADHD, so it actually helps me in some ways to be productive. So we can talk about politics stuff, or current trends, or hot button issues, things like that, or my perspectives on that. And I've been enjoying that a lot. And I also play Magic the Gathering. I play Rust. I'm a variety streamer. I do lots of things depending what tickles my fancy at the time. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Dr. Alfie?
So first thing, I'm gonna go figure out how to work on Twitch. So I gotta go get on there. You're not on Instagram, so Michael gotta go figure out Instagram. I gotta figure out Twitch. I'll get my son to teach me. So I can follow Michael and get distracted. So you can see my name. It's Dr. Alfie, DRAL, F as in Frank, IEE, all one word. That's me on all my socials. And my website, dralfie.com. So it looks like Dralfie. So if you just look up Dralfie, right? There's like 2 Alfies in the world that spell their name like me. So it's really not that hard. And most of the time you can catch me either in some print article, or, if I'm lucky that week, I'm on somebody's online show, or on the news or something. And the thing I'm most passionate about, even when I'm not doing that stuff, is my nonprofit, the AAKOMA project, AAK as in kite, OMA. We welcome all young people. Our tagline is mental health, research, and care for all. We want all of our young people to know that they matter and that they all have a right to optimal mental health. And that's what we try to build, is a community for that. We have a bunch of things coming up, so you should stay tuned to our website, because we got giveaways and things like that, just to support young people with their mental health. And then, so I think it's those 2 websites, and AAKOMA projects on socials, all one word. And I think that's it.
Did you want to mention, I know you mentioned Couched and Colored earlier.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to see you guys got to help old people. I totally forgot. Thank you, sweetheart. So Couched and Colored is my podcast. We're on Instagram, but we're audio and video, so you can follow us on YouTube. We need a lot more followers, so we need people to share it. And I'll be honest with you, I barely talk. So I'll ask a little question, and the whole thing is my guest. So it's really about centering our guests. We've had a couple of big time influencers from Instagram on. One used to be a big time Vine person before they all shut down. And then he moved to Instagram. He's also on Twitter. His name's Landon Moss. And he's a funny dude. And then we also have 3 or 4 upcoming influencers who are teenagers. So we got young people who come on the podcast. So we really want people to come watch us on Couched and Colored. So you can just hear about people's journeys, and they're very real and very open, and they just tell you what it's like. So thank you for that, Fenway, because I completely forgot about the podcast.
Absolutely. And you should definitely go check both of these people out. They do amazing work. You will also hopefully be able to see them in upcoming Jaspers Game Day events, for sure. Fantastic. So I am Fenway Jones, also known as Fenway the Teen DM on Twitter, and Jaspers Game Day on all of the social medias. You can catch me right here on this YouTube. And all my projects are linked in my Twitter and that sort of thing. So I'll put all links for their projects down in the description, so make sure to check that out and look for upcoming episodes. Thank you so much.